Welcome to the session on stakeholder mapping and engagement. Hi, I'm Swarna. I work with Wash Institute. In this session, we will look at why it is important to map and engage with stakeholders for used water management planning and the tool that can be used, and how to use this information in used water management planning. We will also look at an example of a town where all the relevant stakeholders were mapped. Before we begin, let's come to a common understanding of what do you mean by a stakeholder. A stakeholder is an individual, group or organization with varying interest in or who may be impacted at various levels by an intervention or a project. Used water management is sometimes complex because it has many stakeholders including various government departments, private sectors and citizens. By knowing who influences and get influenced, we will be able to ensure that the objectives of all these actors align towards a common goal. It is necessary to map stakeholders to get a holistic understanding of the sanitation ecosystem and assess the on-ground reality of each aspects of the sanitation chain. Stakeholder mapping helps to consult, inform and involve different stakeholders at different stages of decision making. Engaging stakeholders right from the beginning helps in building trust and ensures that proposed interventions align with community needs, hence mitigate the risk of any resistance. Stakeholders feel heard and included so that they take ownership of sanitation initiatives, which eventually leads to better implementation and sustainability. In this session, however, we will look at stakeholders that are directly or indirectly involved in efficient used water management. But how do we identify relevant stakeholders? Let's first look at the sanitation chain. The stages that excreta or used water goes through from its generation to disposal is known as sanitation chain. Stages of chain include containment, emptying, conveyance, treatment and disposal, and end use. Let's explore different ways in which used water flows through these stages. In the first type, the household is connected to a sewer network which helps in conveying the used water to a treatment facility. Once treated, the used water is disposed of or used appropriately, ensuring public health and environmental protection. In the second type, households are connected to on-site sanitation systems like a septic tank, generally followed by suck pit for infiltration of effluent. These systems work efficiently for a design period of 2 or 3 years and need periodic desludging. The semi-solid slurry that is emptied using a desludging vehicle is known as fecal sludge. The fecal sludge, once emptied, is transported to a treatment facility like a fecal sludge treatment plant or a sewage treatment plant for co-treatment. Once treated, the byproduct are reused appropriately. In the third type, the grey water finds its way into open drains along with the effluent of septic tanks. This combination of used water is conveyed using open drains and then intercepted and diverted to a treatment facility. Once treated, the used water is disposed of or reused appropriately. In reality, all three methods can coexist in a town, representing all possibility of stages of the sanitation chain. Now that we understood various stages of sanitation chain, let us now see how this can help in identifying stakeholders. A best way to identify the stakeholders across the sanitation chain is to ask ourselves at each stage of the sanitation chain, who is the owner of the system, who is the user, who is responsible to operate and maintain these systems? Who is responsible to monitor the smooth functioning of the system? Who is enforcing regulation and who is providing the finance? In some cases, the individual or organization responsible to build the infrastructure also becomes an important stakeholder. For example, at the containment stage, if the households depend on on-site sanitation systems like a septic tank, then property owners become important stakeholder as they can give details about the size of the system and periodicity of emptying. Town planners also become important stakeholders as they approve the designs of the systems. Contractors and masons active in the town can validate the type of structure being built and whether the systems are built leak proof. Many times the owner is not aware of the structure built underground. Hence, the desludgers becomes an important stakeholder to validate the design and quality of the structure built along with the frequency of desludging observed by them. Local body can also guide with respect to what kind of regulations are in place towards designing and emptying of such septic tanks. To understand how to engage with stakeholders, one can use the interest versus influence matrix to map, identify and engage with stakeholders. For example, an elected representative will come under a high influence but low interest category, so it is good to actively consult them. Similarly, the local government has considerable interest and influence too. Hence, local government officials should be engaged closely in developing the UWM plan. Stakeholders like private service providers have high interest and it is important to engage them to maintain their interest. Beneficiaries like household should also be kept informed. Let's take an example of a town. So, when the earlier mentioned questions were asked at each stages of the sanitation chain, these stakeholders were mapped. For example, the State Urban Development Authority approves the proposals and sanction fund for development of conveyance network or buying appropriate desludging vehicles. Whereas, the urban local body is responsible for operating and maintaining equipment and network. Similarly, State Urban Development Authority is responsible for sanctioning funds for development of treatment plants, while Pollution Control Board ensures the treatment is happening in line with the prescribed standards. The Horticulture Department or farmers are the end users of the byproducts like soil conditioners and treated water and should be consulted to understand the existing scenario. You can download this sheet for reference from the link provided in the description of the video. In summary, stakeholder mapping is essential for getting a holistic understanding of the sanitation ecosystem. By understanding who is involved, their interest and their influence, we can create more effective and sustainable solutions. Effective mapping and engagement will save time and resources and contribute to an effective and inclusive used water management plan. Stakeholder engagement will also help in understanding the institutional mechanism of UWM and overlap of responsibility, if any. Stakeholder mapping will also help to collect the relevant data required from concerned stakeholders. Thank you for going through this session.